Alright guys, it is the end of a 3-game week in the Championship. We're back again for our Week 21 score predictions. This season is just absolutely flying by right now, isn't it? We'll be discussing all the matches that took place in midweek throughout the video as well. If you went to any of those games, get your thoughts on them in the comments down below, as well as your score predictions for the weekend. But without any further ado, let's just jump in. Starting out on Friday night for West Brom up against Sheffield United. It's a very quick turnaround when you go from playing at the weekend, playing on Tuesday night, to then play on the Friday night, so both teams won't have had that long to prepare for it. Sheffield United coming off the back of a draw in midweek against Norwich. Bit of a frustrating one given the chances Sheffield United had in that game. Wilder made quite a few changes as well, obviously with the busy schedule, was sort of forced into that. West Brom coming off the back of a 3-2 defeat against Southampton, and the pressure's really on Ryan Mason right now because you've got that West Brom side languishing in the bottom half of the table, and they know they should be much higher than that. Now, while results have been inconsistent for West Brom for the past couple of months now, their home form has actually been alright so far. They've only lost once at home all season, and that was against Derby. Back in September, they lost that game 1-0, and it really shouldn't have been a game they lost with all the chances they had in that game. So, for all of West Brom's faults so far, the Hawthorns have still tended to be a pretty tricky place to go this season, and West Brom have taken points from good sides this season at home. You've obviously got Sheffield United, who are still on a good unbeaten run at the moment, albeit with the quick turnaround of matches, I don't think we'll probably be quite firing on all cylinders on Friday night. I always tend to go for a draw with the Friday fixture, don't I? I could see this one going either way, but I'm fancying a draw for this one. Score prediction, I'm going to go for a 1-1 between those two. If I had to go either way, I probably would be siding with Sheffield United, but I just think West Brom's home record, the pressure Mason's under after back-to-back losses, I just think they'll grind a point out of that game. Next up to Carrow Road for the first of the Saturday 12:30 kickoffs. We've got Norwich going up against Southampton. Performances are definitely heading in the right direction for Norwich, and they're coming off the back of a solid point away in midweek at Sheffield United. Certainly given the context around that game, how well Sheffield United have been playing recently, to leave with a point, given some of the chances Sheffield United had, that's certainly not to be sniffed at. And Norwich could have won it late on with a very good chance they had in the last few minutes of that game. But on paper, they're going into another really tough game here against the Southampton side who, since Tunde Eke has taken over from Will Still, they've accumulated more points than any other side in the Championship. They've won 6 of their last 7 league matches, have scored 21 goals in that time, and are looking like a pretty formidable force going forward. The only loss they've had under Eke so far came against Millwall away from home. Coming off the back of a win in midweek against West Brom, probably should have been a little bit more comfortable in that game given they were 3 goals up at half-time, and maybe showed a bit of defensive vulnerability in that game. Certainly struggled with a few crosses coming into the box from West Brom in that second half. Listen, it's a tough one because we have seen improvements from Norwich recently. I just think on the recent form book and how many goals Southampton have got in them at the moment, I think they just have enough to get past Norwich here, who I think could still have a defensive mistake in them. Score prediction for me in that game, I'm going to go 2-1 Southampton on the road. Do see both sides scoring, just think the Saints have got a bit more about them. Next then we go to the Kazam for Oxford up against Preston. Both sides coming off the back of draws in midweek. Oxford picking up a point away at Blackburn, which in the grand scheme of things I think is a pretty decent point. North End picking up a point against Coventry, which is definitely a good point for us considering we were down to 10 men for the entire second half. Obviously, Liam Lindsay will be suspended for this game, and with Lewis Gibson still unavailable, Paul Heckingbottom will be forced to shuffle around that back three a little bit. And it's an interesting fixture because Oxford, I think, tend to play best against those sides in the top 6, certainly top half of the table, and Preston are one of those teams at the moment who will have the expectations coming into this game looking for all 3 points. But Oxford at the Kazam this season have taken points off Coventry, Millwall, Middlesbrough and Ipswich. They're a good tough nut to crack at home, and something that I also want to throw into the mix is Gary Rowett has an absolutely unbelievable head-to-head record against Preston. In his entire managerial career, Rowett's managed 15 matches against Preston. During that time, he's got 8 wins, 7 draws, and has never been beaten. A Preston North End side has never beaten a Gary Rowett side. Could history be made this weekend? I think Oxford will make this really tough for us. I think that North End recently have been quite draw heavy. 4 of our last 6 matches have ended 1-1. Some of those draws I think have been a lot better than others. After how much energy we put into that performance against Coventry in midweek, I think we could struggle to break down Oxford in this one. Score prediction, I'll go for another draw. I'll go for a 1-1er in this one, but I've got a bad feeling. I feel like Oxford could nick that one. They beat us there last season, but I'm going to say this finishes level. 1-1, I'm saying. Next then to the Bet365 for Stoke up against Swansea, and things just aren't falling for Stoke at the moment. Another loss for Mark Robins' side, albeit away to Ipswich in midweek. Regardless of the current run that Stoke are on, that was always going to be a very tough match, especially conceding as early as they did in that game. They kept it tight, but ultimately didn't really offer a great deal going forward, and that has been a bit of a overriding narrative in quite a few of Stoke's matches recently. It now means that it's 5 losses from their last 6 matches, and going into this weekend against a Swansea side where this game looks a lot tougher right now than it probably would have done a couple of weeks ago. Swansea with a bit more confidence after back-to-back wins at home, having got the better of 2 relegation strugglers in both Oxford and Portsmouth, and keeping clean sheets in both of those matches. The game against Pompey didn't look the most high quality, I think it's safe to say, but keeping a clean sheet, and then when that moment of quality finally did come around, was Cullen with a nice finish. Honestly, this game feels tight, it feels low scoring. Would not be surprised if 1 goal either way is enough to win this one, and for that reason it feels like the first goal is quite important. If we're going to get any goalless draw this weekend though, it feels like it could come in this match. Score prediction, I'm going to go for a goalless draw between those two. Just not a lot going for Stoke right now. And this for Swansea will probably be a bigger test than Oxford and Portsmouth were at home. So I'll go for a draw in that one. Next then to St Andrews for Birmingham up against Charlton. 2 sides looking to bounce back from defeats in midweek. Birmingham coming off the back of consecutive defeats on the road. They'll be pleased that this game is at St Andrews. And 3 of their next 4 league matches are at home, which I'm sure Birmingham fans will be pleased to hear. It's just been night and day between Birmingham's home performances and away performances of late. They've been averaging 2.3 goals per game at St Andrews, but have been struggling to hit a barn door on the road. This is the sort of game that I think could suit Birmingham. They're going up against a Charlton side who are short of confidence right now. They've lost 5 on the bounce. It was another defeat for them in midweek at home against Middlesbrough. Thought that Charlton showed a little bit more after the break, but first half of that game looked pretty passive. Birmingham, I think, are going to take the game to Charlton in this one. They'll look to pin them back as quickly as possible, and with the goals they've been rattling off at St Andrews, I'd fancy them to bounce back in this game. Score prediction for me, I'm going to go 3-1 Birmingham. I just feel like Charlton need to get their spark back somehow, but I'm not sure I see it coming this weekend. Birmingham certainly need a result, but they have been doing the business at St Andrews recently. Next then we go to Coventry up against Bristol City. Coventry looking to react from dropping points in their last 2 matches. I think they'll be pleased to be back at home for this one, albeit against a Bristol City side who I do think turn up in these sorts of matches. Bristol City in midweek played out a 2-2 draw with Leicester, which I think Bristol City fans will probably walk away from being quite frustrated. I was backing them to beat Leicester. Ultimately, was a really slow start to that match. They found themselves 2 goals down at half-time. Big reaction in the second half, and had that game gone on for 5 or 10 more minutes, I think Bristol City probably would have found the winner. Much improved after the break from Gerhard Struber's side. And going up against a Coventry side who haven't been at their best over these last couple of matches and are also dealing with a few key injuries right now, I'd certainly back Bristol City to get a goal in this one. Coventry only kept 1 clean sheet in their last 10 matches. Obviously, I saw them in the flesh in midweek when they travelled to Deepdale. To be fair, I think you could look at that performance against Preston in one of 2 ways. One, yes, they did drop points in quite a frustrating manner against a North End side that were down to 10 men for the entire second half. But on the flip side of that, they also crafted out some really good opportunities, and had they been just a tiny bit more clinical, could have easily scored 3 or 4 goals in that game, given the chances they created. I think being back at home for this one as well, against a Bristol City side who do have a mistake in them defensively, I'm going to say this is where Cov get back to winning ways. Score prediction, I'm going to go 2-1 Coventry. Also got to factor in Cov have had an extra day's rest as well. But Bristol City could bring something to the party, especially if they show up in this game like they did in the second half against Leicester. Next then to the King Power for Leicester up against Ipswich. Leicester obviously coming off the back of that 2-2 draw with Bristol City in midweek, which we were just discussing. Really a game of two halves in that one. Fast start from Leicester to find themselves 2 goals up at half time, but as soon as the full-time whistle went, Marty Cifuentes was probably pretty relieved that his side were leaving with a point given how dominant Bristol City were in that second half. I've still got question marks over Leicester, the setup there and their ability to put together a proper cohesive full 90-minute performance. It feels like Leicester play well in patches, but over a full 90 we're yet to see that much evidence that they've got that in them, albeit on paper going away to Bristol City and Derby and coming out of those 2 matches with 4 points. That's not the end of the world. But what could be the end of the world for Leicester is if they lose this game and they continue to lose ground on the top 6. You've got Ipswich, who have won back-to-back matches at Portman Road, much needed after they were coming off the back of some pretty limp performances away from home. But to pick up 6 points from games against Coventry and Stoke is no easy going. And they've now got the chance to make this the perfect 9-point week if they can get all 3 points away at Leicester. I do think the Tractor Boys have a bit more about them in both ends of the pitch. I think they're better defensively. They've got more goals in them going forward as well. Draw here wouldn't massively surprise me, but on recent evidence, I think I'm siding with Ipswich for this one, which would be quite the result to make it 3 wins on the bounce. Score prediction there, I'm going to go 2-1 Ipswich on the road. I do fancy Leicester to get a goal in that one. I just think Ipswich have got a bit more about them though. Next day we go to the Riverside for Middlesbrough up against Queen's Park Rangers. 2 sides banging form right now. You've got Borough coming off the back of consecutive away wins. Another good result for them on the road in midweek away at Charlton. And it's felt like Borough have had the last 2 games won by half-time, really. They were 2-0 up at Charlton at half-time, and away at Hull they were 4 goals up at that point. What will be interesting to see in a game like this is, can they keep up that same intensity in the first half and second half if they go in at QPR level, which I think could definitely happen. QPR, one of the form teams in the league right now. They've won 4 of their last 5 matches. A dramatic turnaround late on at Loftus Road for that last-minute winner for QPR against Birmingham. We thought that Blues had done enough to nick a point in that game, all for QPR to hit them with a sucker punch just a few minutes later. This is the sort of game where I definitely do see both sides scoring. I could see a 2-1 either way, really. Out of the 2 sides, I do think that it's probably Middlesbrough who maybe have a few more gears to go. And for that reason, I'm just going to edge them for a result in this one. But QPR have proved me wrong quite a few times in recent weeks on these predictions, so wouldn't be surprised if they do it again. Score prediction in that game, though, I'm going to back Borough for 3 in a row. I'm going to go 2-1 Middlesbrough, but I certainly see it being a good back and forth game. Next then to the den for Millwall up against Hull. Millwall continued their unbeaten streak, extended it to 4 matches with a 1-1 draw with Derby in midweek. These 3-game weeks especially really test squad depth, and I thought in that Millwall game away at Derby, there did look to be a few tired legs out there, which is more than understandable with all the injuries they've got at the moment. Alex Neil doesn't really have the luxury, like a lot of other Championship managers, to make those big rotations in midweek because he's really working with quite a small group of players at the moment. And going into a game against a Hull side who really can get at you when you're not completely on it, those energy levels really could have an influence on not just Millwall's game this weekend, but all the games going on in the Championship. You've got Hull coming off the back of a really good performance and result in midweek, beating Wrexham 2-0. Alright, they probably rode their luck at points of that match, obviously with Kiefer Moore not converting the penalty. Moore also squandered quite a big chance in the first half as well, but generally speaking, looked like a really good and fluid attacking performance from Hull, and it feels like they're getting key players back from injury at just the right point of the season. Ollie McBurney's back in the frame. He scored on his return to the side in midweek. You've got Liam Miller who's back now, Balumi who's back fit and available as well. Hull are a completely different side with those 3 in it. Another thing I'd point out as well is Hull have been a bit of a bogey side for Millwall in recent years. They're unbeaten in their last 6 head-to-head matches against Millwall, which is quite the record. Oh, it's a difficult one because Millwall at their best, I think, are capable of doing in anyone in the Championship, but equally, Hull are definitely capable of scoring 2 or 3 goals in any game they go into, especially with Ollie McBurney back and available. I've just got a gut feeling there could be something in this one for Hull. Score prediction there, I'm going to go 2-1 to the Tigers away from home. I just think that with all the injuries Millwall have got at the moment, at the end of a 3-game week, this is where that could catch up with them, potentially. Next then to Fratton Park for Portsmouth up against Blackburn. A really big game at the bottom end of the Championship. If Portsmouth win this game, they'll go within 2 points of Blackburn. But if Blackburn win it, they'll put some serious daylight between themselves and the bottom 3. Listen, there's no getting away from it. The big issue that Pompey are having right now is consistently scoring goals. Since they put 3 past Millwall a few weeks ago, they've failed to hit the back of the net in any of their last 3 matches. Their result away at Swansea in midweek was particularly damning, losing that 1-0 against a fellow relegation struggler, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if this game maybe heads in a similar direction. You've got Blackburn coming off the back of quite a frustrating point for them in midweek against Oxford, drawing with another one of the sides around them. Despite dominating that game for possession chances and everything like that, they just couldn't find a winner. The first goal in this game does feel really pivotal, because if Pompey can get that and give themselves something to hold on to, the match could unfold very differently. But Blackburn have been really good value for money away from home this season. They're the 3rd best away side in the league currently. And you've got Pompey, where Fratton Park hasn't really had that same fear factor that it did last season. And for that reason, draw wouldn't surprise me, but I'm going to go for a 1-0 Blackburn win on the road, which would be a really sinking result for Pompey. I just struggle to see where the consistent goals are coming from at the moment in that side. Next then we go to the racecourse for Wrexham up against Watford. Wrexham's unbeaten streak coming to an end in midweek away at Hull. There were signs of Wrexham maybe cutting things quite fine and riding the luck a little bit in the games leading up to that one midweek against Hull, but even in that game could have got something out of it had Kiefer Moore converted the penalty or scored the big chance that he had in the first half. But they'll look to dust themselves down, and I'd give them a pretty good chance of bouncing back in this game. The racecourse has been a tough place to go to recently. They're unbeaten in their last 7 home matches, and going up against a Watford side who, generally speaking this season, have really struggled away from home. Watford have only won once in 9 away matches so far this season. They're also coming off the back of a pretty underwhelming performance themselves in midweek at home against Sheffield Wednesday, where they could only play out a 1-1 draw. Missed opportunities in that game, of course, but Watford have had a bit of a frustrating pattern recently with starting games quite slowly, and one of the worst teams I think to go behind to right now are probably Wrexham, because defensively they can just squeeze you out of the game and frustrate the hell out of you. For that reason, I think that Wrexham probably do take this game. Score prediction, I'm going to go 2-1 Wrexham in that game. And then to finish off on Monday night, we're going to Hillsborough for Sheffield Wednesday up against Derby. Wednesday picking up a solid point on the road in midweek away at Watford. What a difference it makes having Pierce Charles back in between the sticks. He's now back from injury, and I think he will make Sheffield Wednesday better defensively. Obviously, they do boast the worst defensive record in the league currently, having conceded 37 goals in their opening 19 matches, but that's often been a case of just how many shots they've been forced to soak up game to game. Now, this is an interesting matchup. They're going up against a Derby side who got a point in midweek against Millwall, which isn't the worst result in the world. 2 own goals in that game, quite bizarrely. But it is worth stressing, in terms of the underlying attacking metrics this season, Derby have been the second least creative side in the Championship. Only Swansea have mustered a lower XG than Derby have so far this season, and with Wednesday definitely being capable of grinding out a result, it does feel like quite a tight game, this one. I just think though that Derby, being a little bit streetwise, definitely have the potential to win this game with a set piece or two, and that's probably where I see them winning this one. Wednesday still looking for their first home win of the season, and I'm not sure it's going to come on Monday night. Score prediction for me in that one, I'll go 2-1 Derby on the road. But there you have it, guys. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to drop a like, and do get your score predictions in the comments down below. Apart from that though, guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.